to another video on art therapy. My name is Lauren Fallett and I work for Holistic Health Counseling Center. For today's post, we're going to be talking about drawing materials. And for today's video, I have an assortment of drawing materials in front of me that I'm going to be showing to you and offering some recommendations and tips with how to work with them. So let's get started. By talking about our drawing materials. I'm going to start with drawing pencils that you might encounter in an art therapy studio. Generally, graphite pencils, like your number 2 that you use in a classroom, that's fine to work with, but sometimes you might encounter these pencils here. So I wanted to just show you and explain what the letters and numbers mean, because sometimes that can be confusing. I know it was for me. So pencils that I like to use are the Tombow Mono pencil, and I usually work with a 2B and an HB. And what that means really is that pencils have different weights. The lead is softer or harder, and that means that it leaves a softer line or a weightier, darker line on your paper. When the line is softer, it can be erased more easily. When it's thinner, it's a little bit harder and leaves more of a faint line. So that's important to know when you're working with pencils. You'll also work with different types of erasers. So I brought those in as well. I have the Sanford Magic Rub Eraser. I have a Prismacolor white eraser that's been used pretty well. And something that you may not have encountered before, but I wanted to show you. So this is called a kneaded eraser, and it's awesome because you can shape it in any way you like. So I can get it to a point if I want, and you can really get small details being able to shape it, curve it, however you like. So it's a little bit less bulky than your regular eraser here. One other material that you might encounter with pencils are these. This is called, I call it a smudge stick, but it's also a blending stump. And this can be used to blend your graphite on your paper, create a nice gradient. People use it for shading. So that's something that you might encounter when working with pencils. Show you colored pencils. So hopefully you can see that here. They come in a variety of colors. There's different brands. I know that Prismacolor, I have those here, are really helpful when you're blending and overlapping different colors and shades. So really up to you what brand you work with. I don't support anyone in particular, but just know that certain color pencils will break more easily. So there is a difference in terms of how waxy they are and how they blend together. So you can do some research on that. But I love colored pencils because they can be combined with other materials. So I can use colored pencils with chalk pastels, oil pastels. You can really overlap them. They have a structured component to them, so they're not really erasable. But they have a nice contrast with your more fluid paints. So those are your colored pencils. Next up on our material list for structured materials are our markers. So there are a variety of markers depending on age. You might use washable, some are more permanent. What I have in front of me are materials that I will use as an artist, but also use in an art therapy room. So any sort of Crayola washable markers are great for kids. I know that they have smaller ones for younger children, and then there's larger ones as well. Those are fine, and those are typical markers that you might encounter or have at home. I also wanted to show you that Sharpie has these fine point markers, so I'll open it up for you. So these are nice because you can create a larger line or thinner line depending how much pressure you use. I also like to use the Bic Market pencil markers here, and they also have a triangular tip, which is nice for detailed work. And they also have a nice saturated line that they produce, so the color is nice and dark. That's great for if you're creating mandalas or Zentangles. Micron pens are great for drawing details. So if you are someone who likes to use detailed line work, you know, adding textures, these are wonderful. And they have different numbers on them. And so the number essentially tells you how wide the tip is. So the larger the number, the bigger the tip is. I also brought these out. These are thin tipped markers, again for details. The Micron pens also come in different colors. These are Arteza, and I like that they come in a variety of colors. And then you'll find markers on the internet. These are Prismacolor, but you can find different ones that have a wider tip and a thinner tip. So this is nice, so you have it all in one. So if you want to add larger shaded areas and then textured with your thinner tip, you have it all in one marker. And something else that I like to have in the art therapy room are metallic markers. So this can be helpful when you're working with different directives, and it just adds a different element to what you're working on. So I recommend having that or asking for it if you want to add any touch of shimmer or glitter without the glitter. Are oil pastels. So these are called Craypas. They're a fine oil pastel that you might encounter in an art therapy session. This is what the box looks like. And so these are definitely in between structured and unstructured on our spectrum of material quality, because these pastels can go on like a crayon, have sort of a rougher edge but still make lines and shapes, but you can also blend them. So you can take your hand and smudge them around or take a paper towel. So they do have movement on the page, even though they're not as fluid as a watercolor. So that is an oil pastel. And they also make water-soluble oil pastels, meaning that they can go on just as usual, but when you add water on a brush, it starts to smooth them out and they become more fluid. So that's something worth checking out as well. We have charcoal. So charcoal is both structured and unstructured. I'll show you here, these are charcoal sticks. Generally they go on the paper almost like graphite, although they're a little bit softer and blendable. This is also a pressed graphite stick. It's a little bit softer, and so when I draw on the paper with it, it's still going to hold its color and it'll hold its shape, but it'll blend more, so I can blend the dust a little bit. It has some movement across the page. Now, charcoal also comes in vines and thinner sticks that you can roll and really add texture with, as well as pencils. So charcoal is pretty messy, so that is the unstructured part with charcoal, is that they can get other places than intended, especially on your hands. So if you are someone who likes things to be clean or neat, I recommend getting charcoal pencils if you like how they look, sort of the softer shape, but don't like the mess. Our drawing material list are our chalk pastels. So hopefully you can see that they come in a variety of colors. Some are softer, which these are, and some are a little bit harder. These are the Prismacolor NuPastels, so they come in a stick, and they're pretty much, they hold a solid shape, but again can be blended. So these are considered a little bit more less structured than the oil pastels, because they turn into fine dust, right? When you contact the pastel onto the paper, there's a dust that forms, and you can smudge that around your page. You can knock it off of the page too, it'll fall down. So the chalk pastels generally have movement, and they don't necessarily stay where you put them, depending on how hard or soft they are. So you can play around with it. The NuPastels are a little bit harder and hold their shape. Softer pastels, again, you can blend them and spread them around more easily on the paper. Review and demonstration of the drawing materials you might encounter in an art therapy session was helpful to you. Again, I work for Holistic Health Counseling Center, and if you're interested in learning more, you can visit our website at hhccnj.com. You can also check out the art therapy website, arttherapynj.com, as well, if you'd like to schedule an appointment or contact me with any questions. I look forward to hearing from you soon. Take care.